Every week, college football games hinge on a single word.
Touchdown. Touchdown, Texas. Touchdown, Oklahoma. Touchdown. Touchdown. Touchdown, Wisconsin. Touchdown. 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 Touchdown, Stanford. Touchdown. Touchdown, Alabama. Touchdown, Notre Dame. Touchdown. Wow.
This is Touchdown Radio. Here's Gino Torretta and Taylor Zarzour.
And we're glad you're with us on Touchdown Radio Tailgate with the 1992 Heisman Trophy winner, Gino Torretta. I'm Taylor Zarzour. There's no way this broadcast would have been possible without the funny caddy, the ESPN caddy, Michael Collins. I am using his headphones right now. I am using Justin Ware, Sirius XM PGA Tour radio producer's laptop right now. And I'm using Gino Torretta's wisdom in order for us to be on the air at this moment. Lord knows anybody that's ever met me knows I have all sorts of technological problems. This brings back memories of a broadcast that you and I did, G. I'm trying to find the picture of it right now, at the College Football Hall of Fame, where we shared headphones and shared a microphone one time. That was pre-COVID, by the way. So it was.
Yes, it was.
It wasn't frowned upon at that time.
We might have shared a cold beverage just to
right.
relax our frayed nerves. I'll have to figure out how to post that with the video. But you know what the crazy thing is, Taylor? I believe you're right down the road from your house.
I am 10 minutes from my house right now, where all of my equipment resides that I didn't for some reason bring to the golf course with me, as the President's Cup is happening this week. And we have been broadcasting, of course, on Sirius XM.
You've been known to pack lightly, my man.
Yeah, I think, do I really need this? Yes, here is the picture, by the way. As if you're following along on video, I have found
beautiful.
a picture of us as we were broadcasting 6 years ago. How about almost to the day, by the way. So there you go. All right, let's get into what's happening in college football. Let's first reflect back on what happened in week number 3 of the college football season. Gino, I guess the first place I would start is that Georgia looks like the best team in all of college football at this moment. Alabama is certainly in the conversation, as they always are, but there seems to be a difference between Georgia and Alabama so far. What do you think?
Well, I think the offense for Georgia is just rolling. I think you have a quarterback in Stetson Bennett. I think he's the second oldest quarterback in college football right now, or oldest. He's one of the, experienced seniors. And, and I think that when we look at across college football right now, teams that were rated really high that have stumbled already, I think they haven't had consistent quarterback play, or they've turned the ball over. I think, whether it's Florida this weekend against Tennessee, I mean, Richardson hasn't thrown a touchdown pass. You look at Texas A&M, their quarterback that beat Alabama last year, he's the third stringer on Auburn's team. They haven't looked great and really had a pedestrian effort last week against Miami, but they still won. So I think that it's come down to experience at key positions. I mean, we're always talking about the NFL, the best teams have the best quarterbacks. I think the best teams so far really have the best quarterback, and Stetson Bennett has been lights out early in the season.
Did you ever think that would be the case, that a former walk-on that played at a community college a few years ago would be seen as a legitimate Heisman Trophy contender?
I think this, in today's day and age with the transfer and thing like that, and the extra year, I just look at professional quarterbacks, how much better you get mentally in the same system, making decisions. And I think that's what Stetson Bennett is happening right now. I think, Taylor, I went down on the field for the Auburn game this weekend, and I know I dislike going on the field because I think it's a total waste of time. But anyway, we went down there on the field, and our man, Coach Cutcliffe, is apparently an SEC representative for the football. So we chatted for a while, and we were talking quarterback, game planning, coaching. And he goes, my favorite picture that Peyton Manning signed for me, he goes, thanks for giving me the point. And you know what the point was? Just go ahead and call the play yourself. and that's what happens when your coach is comfortable, your coach has taught you everything, and he's comfortable in the decisions that you're going to make. And I think that's what Bennett's doing right now.
By the way, every time you and I went to the field, you enjoyed it. You learned something. You kept hitting me and saying, watch this guy and the way that he delivers the football. His mechanics are great. His mechanics are bad. His footwork stinks. His footwork is great. So I just want to state
I didn't learn anything. I was just telling you what I was watching.
All right, fair enough. I learned something, and you imparted your wisdom on others, which I appreciated.
You know what, Taylor? Because of that, I'm very disappointed because you and I think you were the first one where you're like hitting me and you go, watch this kid Trubisky at North Carolina. And I go, wow, but we can't buy stock, man. Yeah. We should buy futures on the talent evaluation of quarterbacks, I guess.
Yeah, you could do that. So Georgia destroys South Carolina. Oklahoma destroys Nebraska. Ole Miss shuts out Georgia Tech. Oregon gets back on the map by blowing out BYU. That was significant. We'll get to some of those games. Here's some other results. I'm wondering if you're interested in. LSU beats Mississippi State. Mike Leach's team seemed to wither away in the fourth quarter. Washington, undefeated, beats Michigan State. And A&M beat Miami 17-9. Any thoughts on any of those games?
Well, I think that the West Coast is learning Michael Penix's name. I think that we've seen him at Indiana light up teams, and now all of a sudden you got a Washington team. Defense is solid. He was accurate, athletic, and everybody just kind of thinks the Pac-12 was going to be a walk for Utah or USC. I tell you, you and I have been to that stadium, man. Washington is the real deal.
Yeah, they are, and that was a big win for them against Sparty. I don't take much from that A&M Miami game. A&M wins 17-9. Their offense is not nearly as good as it should be right now, and Miami's not ready yet. It's Mario Cristobal's first year. I realize they're the University of Miami because of people like you winning national championships and Heisman trophies. Even 30 years later, they're held to this unbelievable standard, and because of what their name is and where they play and the flash that they represent, but their program's not ready, Gino, to compete with the top 10 teams in the country yet.
Well, I agree, but I would argue that I don't know if Texas A&M is a top 10 team. I think that if you can outgain somebody by 100 plus yards, they were almost 400 yards of offense, 27 first downs. And I think ESPN Stats is still trying to figure out if any team has ever had that many first downs and not scored a touchdown. And I think that they were very conservative in the red zone. They didn't execute. I thought their defense executed enough to win the game. I mean, you go on the road, they executed, and really the offense wasn't aggressive. The quarterback, Van Dyke missed some throws at times. The young receivers, didn't hang on to it at times. And I was just kind of disappointed because to me, the game was there for the taking. And even though Miami's young and it's the first year of Mario Cristobal, I just think it would have been huge for the confidence of the young Miami players to say, hey, we went on the road and beat an SEC team. But that game was there for the taking.
Finally, Kansas, Duke, and North Carolina are all undefeated. This is not basketball teams we're talking about. These are football teams that we're talking about that are all undefeated right now. And Kansas is playing Duke this week. 2 3-0 teams.
It's awesome. I think that we like when there's a coaching staff change and you see that and the kids are playing well. I just think it's awesome. And college football, I say it every week, it delivers every single week. And now we got teams that you wouldn't think of. And just like you said, you're like, hey, where should they be ranked? Wait a sec. It's not round ball season. But rock chalk, because I think I got a game back on you off my picks last week, if I'm not mistaken.
You got more than one. Yeah. You are now only 2 behind as you picked up a couple of victories on me. You had LSU. I had Mississippi State. We both had Michigan State and lost with that. You had Penn State. I had Auburn. Speaking of Auburn, we're going to talk about Auburn. We're going to talk about Arizona State. We're going to talk about several other schools that have either already changed coaches or could be doing that in the weeks to come. You didn't think that towards, the beginning of fall, if you will.
It's usually the start of the hot seat. We're already changing jobs, or already guys getting fired.
It's unbelievable. We've had multiple situations with that, and then we've got certainly a bunch of others that are on the hot seat this early in the season. So we're going to get to that coming up in just a moment. Typically, I'm in charge of helping produce this broadcast. This week, that's not the case. Gino, it's time to hit stop as we go to break. And we come back in just a moment and talk about the hot seat on Touchdown Radio Tailgate on ESPNU Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 84. It's ESPNU Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 84, with the 1992 Heisman Trophy winner, Gino Torretta. I'm Taylor Zarzour. West Virginia and Virginia Tech get going here in just a little bit. The 3-0 Coastal Carolina Chanticleers are playing at what used to be called Turner Field in Atlanta, coming up in just a little bit against Georgia State. You can certainly listen to both of those games on ESPN, or on Sirius XM rather. And then Chattanooga plays at Illinois. That is coming up in just a little while. It starts at 8:30 Eastern time. The Mocs are 3-0. Watch out, Brett Bielema, tonight. Could see an upset there against Fighting Illini. And the reason I say that is because Northwestern lost to Southern Illinois last week, 31-24. And Herm Edwards got fired on the field, Gino. At least it looked like it. It looked like the chancellor and the athletic director, both very good friends with Herm Edwards, put their arms around him as he was coming off the field in a 30-21 loss to Eastern Michigan last Saturday at Tempe, and said, it's time for a change. What'd you make of that?
That's pretty amazing. Either that decision was, it written in pencil or signed in pencil before the game, and then just a terrible performance. But I think it's the culmination of, the NC2A investigation into recruiting violations during COVID. You have multiple coaches on, I believe, paid leave because of breaking or purportedly breaking NC2A rules. And then they just haven't had production. And, Arizona State's not an easy job. I mean, I think that, we are like, hey, yeah, we'd like to go there in the winter, and it's great in Phoenix and it's nice and warm, but it's not an easy job. I mean, you and I think, we did the Arizona State game when Dennis Erickson was there, my old coach. You have to go to junior colleges. You have to, just scour the whole country for players, because if you keep the in-state guys just in your school, it's not enough. Similar to a Nebraska situation. And in today's transfer portal age, they haven't done it. They haven't done it well enough. And I think that it's a combination of lack of production on the field and also pending issues with the NC2A.
Yeah, there's no question that is a big issue for them so far at this moment. Ole Miss beat Georgia Tech 42-0 in Atlanta last week. The Yellow Jackets are 1-2 now on the season, and Jeff Collins is in trouble. I mean, I saw some alumni at Georgia Tech saying that they'd be in favor of a coaching change, saying that publicly. That's obviously a difficult job. What are your thoughts on the Rebels, who are in transition? They lost a lot of players from last year, going in and winning 42-0 against the Ramblin' Wreck.
Well, I would say this, having done them, Georgia Tech and Clemson, the first game, I didn't think they're not a lot of depth. It's sad. Jeff Collins is from right there in the area, and everybody wants them to be successful locally. But, their middle linebacker got ejected early in this third quarter. And it was like their defense totally fell apart against Clemson. That's when Clemson started pulling away from them. They just don't have any depth. And I think that, you and I have done enough Georgia Tech games where it was always like, well, the school is so difficult to get into and this. Listen, I think you can get players at Georgia Tech. You're in Atlanta, Georgia, and you could get some kids to stay home. I mean, I've heard people say, what if, Deion Primetime Sanders took over Atlanta? I think he'd mop up in recruiting. I don't think there's any question. I do think it's a difficult school to get into, but I think that's one of the jobs that's probably going to be open at the end of the year. And it's amazing. Like, is it the athletic directors that don't have, playing or athletic experience? It's like they want to get in line first. Like they see what USC did a season ago by firing Helton so early. like they want to get in line first. Like I
Nebraska.
don't think your money's not going to be, listen, you're going to offer a boatload of dough to anybody, and your level of commitment is more what you're going to pay the assistants and what the general budget is, as opposed to just a head guy. So I don't know if it's the right thing to do by terminating an issue, unless there's some serious internal in the house strife between the coach and the coaching staff and players.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point about trying to beat the band. I wonder if Matt Campbell will be that guy at Nebraska. They fired the defensive coordinator the week after they fired the head coach. Oklahoma whipped them 49-14 this past weekend. And the other program I need to ask you about, because you just did their game, and boy, I have to tell you, I'm not surprised Penn State won the game. I'm surprised Penn State embarrassed Auburn the way they did, especially in the second half, 41-12. What do you make of Brian Harson's future in Auburn right now?
Well, he was 8-7 going into the game. Now he's 8-8. And I got to say, you and I are not right picking games a lot, but JP Shedrick said walking into the game, he goes, I think Penn State can score 40 on them. And I'm like, because I was thinking Penn State, they're going to pound the rock. Right. Clifford's a good quarterback. They're not going to make big plays on the outside. And I'll be darned if they didn't do it. And I listen, we talked to people outside. They play Missouri this week and they play LSU next week. There is a real chance of starting off the SEC going 0-3. And Auburn has run off how many? The last 6 or 7 head coaches. They've had different athletic directors. They ran off the athletic director. Would I be surprised? Not at all surprised. But I know this. I'd rather take the Arizona State job than the Auburn job, because who's going to be your boss? There's money there and there's a commitment to win. But, what is that commitment? A year? I mean, we're talking about a guy that was in one season. Then they were trying to fire him off, rumors of an inappropriate relationship with somebody on the staff. That wasn't true. And now it's not, they lost 20 players to the portal. They don't have a quarterback. I mean, TJ Finley, great athlete, can throw, he can run. Either he's not being taught what to do, but I couldn't tell you what their bread and butter was. I said going into the game, whoever runs the ball better of Auburn or Penn State is going to win the game. I don't know what Auburn tried to do.
They don't have an identity. They don't have an identity. Bixby is very talented, but they don't have an identity. And everything you just said about Auburn being in disarray is true. But I disagree with you about which job I'd rather take, because money is no object at Auburn and Arizona State. We don't know how much money they're going to have moving forward, Gino. We don't know if the Pac-12 is going to exist and what conference Arizona State's going to play.
You know what? I take that back. That's a great point. That was a bad evaluation of jobs. I was thinking all was copacetic in the world of conferences, and it was still the Pac-12. But yes, you are right.
But you're right about Auburn. You're right about Auburn being in disarray. I wonder.
But do you want to take the Auburn job and know you're going to get your head bashed in every year by Alabama, LSU, and everybody else in the West?
That's why I'm so surprised that Brian Harsin, who was such a good coach at Boise State, whose only identity has been in that part of the country, came and became the head coach at Auburn in a place he had no experience in, and it just is—it's a square peg in a round hole.
I mean, not for nothing. How do you let Bo Nix go to Oregon? We see what good experienced quarterback play did to them, and he played lights out last week. That's what I'm like. And Calzado, who transferred there from A&M, he's the third guy, and he's still coming off an injury.
Crazy times, as always, in college football. Coming up next, I want to talk about all the great games we have in Week 4. There's a lot of them. In fact, we typically pick 8 games. This week we're picking 9 because they're at least 9 really good games that we need to discuss. We'll go across the country with all of that coming up next. It is Touchdown Radio Tailgate. It is on ESPNU Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 84. We continue on Touchdown Radio Tailgate here on ESPNU Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 84. I'm Taylor Zarzour. I'm with Gino Torretta. It's Thursday. We're getting ready for the games. There are 3 of them going on tonight. And then we have one more happening tomorrow. And then it is a full slate that is happening over the weekend. And I want to go through a few of these games that are outside the top 25 that maybe you just might keep an eye on. 3-0 Indiana's at 2-1 Cincinnati, 2-1 Iowa. Offense is optional at 3-0 Rutgers. Those are 2 games in the Big Ten to watch. Gino, will the Hoosiers be 4-0 after they play the Bearcats, and/or will the Scarlet Knights be 4-0 after they play the Hawkeyes?
I'm going to say the Scarlet Knights are going to shock everybody and go to 4-0. I mean, the offense has been not very good for a several number of years. It seems like at Iowa, new quarterback, and I mean, but they have more penalties than touchdown points score. I mean, it's very lacking, and based on that, I would take Rutgers.
In the Big 12, the Horned Frogs of TCU are 2-0. Fort Worth is coming to Highland Park to play the 2-1 SMU Mustangs. Old coach Sonny Dykes is going back over to Highland Park to coach against the team he used to coach at SMU. Will he come out 3-0 after the game on Saturday?
You know, I like Lashley came from here. You know, I had a good relationship when he was at Miami. I like he's young, energetic. You know what? I think SMU will shock TCU. I just like it. I think that what Rhett has offered and what he's delivered to that program is solid.
Of course, Rhett Lashley, the new coach at SMU, Sonny Dykes, the old coach at SMU, who's now the head coach at TCU. Tomorrow night, Wahoo Wah, the UVA Cavaliers with new coach Tony Elliott travel to 3-0 Syracuse to play in the Carrier Dome. Will Dino Babers be 4-0 after tomorrow night?
Yes, he will.
Okay.
Having played in that stadium and almost lost to a team where we had a lot more talent of, I know that home field advantage there in Syracuse.
You would never make the motion that I'm making right now. You would never do a Florida State Seminole chop.
Well, if I was at a Braves game.
Maybe at a Braves game or a Kansas City Chiefs game. FSU, will they be 4-0 after they play Boston College on Saturday?
Most definitely. I tell you what, I said this, you know, after the first week, I was shocked at how much better Florida State and Florida have become. Florida State and Travis, the quarterback, has been lights out. They got some guys, their new strength program is obviously working because, man, you see these guys in uniform. It's like, holy cow, these guys came to play, and they were all highly recruited kids from Florida and around the country, but I like Florida State.
UCLA got out of the Rose Bowl in front of dozens of people and beat my South Alabama Jaguars last week.
Come on, they have a Justin wine area. That's like our favorite wine here in the Torretta household. Like, I don't know if we would go in to watch the game if I could sit and just enjoy the scenery with some Justin wine.
Can I just say this? Like, I realize college football is not as big a deal in LA. And if the game's in the middle of the day, you're not going to get as good a crowd. But it almost feels sacrilegious to have games in the Rose Bowl with hundreds of people there. You know what I mean? Like, the Rose Bowl to me is the best venue in college football.
No question.
Like, and when you see only that many people, we did a UCLA Washington game out there years ago. And my man Petros Papadakis filled in for you. And we had a blast doing the game. And there was a good crowd there, but it was not a sellout. And I felt like, man, this just doesn't feel right. This feels like having a run-of-the-mill golf tournament at Augusta National, you know? Like, I don't know.
Well, UCLA, it is right next to a golf tournament or a golf course.
A golf course.
It's also a great venue once you're there. It's hell getting to the Rose Bowl. I mean, it's like roads in through the neighborhoods and that's still no excuse just to go out there and support the kids and that I think it's something you want to do, but you can't tell people in California when you got the coast and things like that what to do.
Will Chip Kelly be 4-0 after he gets home from Boulder on Saturday night against the 0-3 Buffaloes?
Wow. Boy, Colorado is just they're reeling. I think UCLA will win the game. Disappointing. We went out there and my daughter toured with my best friend's daughter as a sophomore at Colorado. You want to talk about a great place. I mean, just gorgeous campus, gorgeous facilities. And I remembered it. Hey, they split a national championship when I was in school. Rashaan Salam won the Heisman Trophy in '94. You can't tell me you can't recruit to that school. They've already done it. And they just, man, they are reeling. And the letter that the AD just came out with, doesn't mean, hey, we don't have enough money to compete. It kind of seems like it based on reading between the lines.
Certainly does. And they are 22.5-point dogs playing at home against UCLA that beat South Alabama at the gun. That's wow. All right. Just a couple more. I want to mention the group of 5. Coastal playing right now against Georgia State. I expect the Chanticleers to be 4-0 at the end of the night. Tulane Green Wave is hosting Southern Miss. I would expect them to be 4-0 by the end of the weekend. And Gino, how about this one? The 2-0 James Madison Dukes are playing at Appalachian State. College Game Day is not there. They're with you in Knoxville this weekend. But after the way App State beat Troy last weekend, could old arch rival James Madison come in and get to 3-0 once they leave Boone?
I think that's a tough task, but I think one of my old teammates is a head coach at James Madison. Isn't Bernard Clark the head coach at James Madison? They're right outside of Pittsburgh, right?
They are in Virginia.
James Madison. I was thinking wrong school. But listen, all those guys on game day said that it was going to be a letdown last week, that, hey, it was ripe for an upset. And it was. Some of the end of that game was just, it was really
crazy.
Something.
Crazy.
But maybe App State swallowed a horseshoe. And
they certainly did
this season.
Kurt Signetti is the head coach at JMU, and they're looking to get to 3-0 as they've made the move to the FBS like App did years ago. This is their first season, and they are certainly a terrific program. So those are some games that we are paying close attention to. There are a few others that I just wanted to highlight that I'll go through the games we're going to pick in the next segment. Clemson at Wake, Baylor at Iowa State, Kansas and Duke. Can't believe that made it this week. Tennessee versus Florida. You have the call of that. Texas is at Texas Tech. I think of laryngitis when I think of Lubbock. Oregon is at Washington State. USC is at Oregon State. Arkansas and A&M are playing in Jerry's World. Those are all games that are going on this week. A couple more, though, I wanted to ask you about here that we're not going to pick in the next segment. Georgia's playing Kent State. And Kirby Smart has said, the biggest challenge I've got right now is coaching against outside noise. And he's Nick Saban. He's he's coaching against rat poison, basically is what he's doing. And I just wonder if at any point in the next month, Georgia's ever in a contentious type of situation on the football field. And I don't know, does that really help you once you get to the postseason? Wouldn't you like to have a situation like Alabama had in Austin where you have a close game at some point?
I don't think so. I think you just change your goals. I think that, it became like, if we faced a team when I was in school, was how quickly can you score? How quickly can you get up, and how quickly can you get the backups and the younger guys some experience? And I think that's what Georgia's looking at this weekend. They're probably thinking, okay, how quickly can we go up? Can we get our starters? You have to challenge yourself in different ways when you have that kind of advantage, both physically and everything that comes with being Georgia right now, how good they are. I think that he's probably challenged them to say, okay, we want to run the ball, whatever. We want to dominate the line of scrimmage and score points. Maybe challenge your special teams. Hey, we want to block a kick or return a kick. But I think you just change your goals in the game, and that's how you constantly challenge players, I guess, to get away from the rat poison analogies of Nick Saban. Because, hey, Sark's using it too. But you know what? Can you blame him, Taylor? I mean, the guy's the greatest in college football history. It's just, it's amazing what he's done. And he's the only coach, I think, any level to be able to consistently get away from complacency and somehow figure out some way to continue to recruit at a high level and coach at a high level.
Okay, I got to ask you about these teams that are in the top 10 that are big favorites. Number 2, Alabama is playing Vanderbilt at home. Number 3, Ohio State has a home game in the Horseshoe against Wisconsin, who's already slipped up this season against Washington State. Number 4, Michigan is hosting 3-0 Maryland in the Big House. And number 6, Oklahoma is hosting Kansas State. K-State just slipped up against Tulane this past week. Do any of those teams have anything to worry about that are hosting games as big favorites at home?
I'm sure they do, because college football delivers every week. I mean, out of those, I think Maryland offensively could put some points on the board, against Ohio State, or excuse me, Maryland, the Maryland game. And then, Wisconsin, a hurt dog or a hurt animal is not one you want to be around. And they've already lost one. And these teams that lost one, similar to Florida, their backs are against the wall. They know their goal of a national championship is out the window with loss number 2.
Last thing I got to ask you about in this segment is about a game that you and I have done several times that looks like it's not going to happen for much longer. Number 9, Oklahoma State is not playing this week. They have Bedlam at the end of the season. We've done that game in both places, Stillwater and in Norman. Love it. One of the best rivalries in college football. Oklahoma has elected to leave the Big 12 for greener pastures in the SEC. Oklahoma State has said our non-conference schedule is set for the next 10 years, and we're not changing anything to play you guys simply because you've decided to leave. Who's at fault here?
Well, I don't know who's at fault. Money's going to dictate, and you can't tell me, okay, hey, there's a lot of things that are set in stone, but a schedule 10 years out, come on. You can't tell me you can't figure something out. And I hope that Oklahoma State figure some way, because there's going to be enough money on the table for both those clubs. Like you said, it's a great rivalry. I mean, heck, we did the one game where there was probably 5,000 empty seats because Oklahoma State wouldn't sell tickets on an individual game basis. So the Oklahoma fans were signing up for season tickets. I mean, it was absolutely crazy, where the place wasn't full, and yet there's people outside trying to get in.
And as a Miami Dolphins fan, I remember the Cheetah taking a punt back to the house in Norman to win the game for Oklahoma State. I have to ask you this, though. I mean, I just have to say this real quickly as we finish this segment up. I'm not meaning this disparagingly towards Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State would have joined the Southeastern Conference had they been invited. That's a fact. Number 2, do your fans want you to play Oklahoma? Yes. That's a fact. So get out of your non-conference games over the next 10 years and figure it out. Don't blame Oklahoma for doing something.
We're not talking about all of them. You're talking about one game.
Yeah.
They can figure one game out.
Exactly. All right. We're coming back with some picks coming up next. We got 9 games to pick. My lead is down to 2. We'll see what happens next on Touchdown Radio Tailgate on ESPNU Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 84. It is time to make some picks on Touchdown Radio Tailgate. We like to do a big breakdown of the best games in college football each week. Gino Torretta, I'm Taylor Zarzour. We're getting you ready for the weekend slate. We got a couple games tonight, another game tomorrow, and then a full slate on Saturday. So far this season, Gino Torretta is 17-7 picking games. I am 19-5 on the year, but Gino made up some ground last week. He picked LSU. I picked Mississippi State. I looked good for 45 minutes, and then the Bulldogs forgot about the fourth quarter. Meanwhile, I senselessly picked the Auburn Tigers, and you picked Penn State. That was not even close. That was the worst pick of the year on my part. I probably should lose an extra game just for picking that. All right, let's get the pen out. Let's get ready for these games, and let's start with what is happening in Winston-Salem. Gino, Wake Forest used to play in Wake Forest, as Bobby Bowden used to say. Now they play in Winston-Salem. They've been doing that for close to 70 years, by the way. Number 5, Clemson, who doesn't look great offensively so far this season. You've seen it. is playing at number 21 Wake Forest, and Sam Hartman is playing quarterback for the Deeps. I think this might be the game of the year in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Wake Forest is a 7.5 point underdog in the game. We're picking it straight up, G. It's a noon kick on ABC. What do you think?
I don't think there's any question as far as being the ACC game of the year. I think that you have a team in Clemson, a lot of high hopes to get in the playoffs. Hartman, first round, just stud at quarterback at Wake Forest. He was out injured. Now he comes back, and it's a great story after he gets his health issues straightened out. Saw Clemson against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, not a good football team. We just saw Ole Miss just pound them 42-0 at home. And when I look at this on who to pick, I'm going to pick the best quarterback. I'm picking Hartman. I don't care that I get that Clemson's defense is just they're out of this world, but their offense really leaves things to be desired. Whether it's how the game is called with DJ under center, but they just haven't had the production I would like to see after a returning quarterback, and that's why I'll take Wake Forest.
I like the pick, but I can't go with you. At the line of scrimmage, I think Clemson is the better team, and I have to think they're smart enough to run Will Shipley 20-plus times in this game and win the game on the ground. I totally agree with you about the better quarterback, though. There's no question that would be Sam Hartman. Let's stay at noon and go through a couple more games. Number 17, Baylor, is playing at the Iowa State Cyclones. The Clones are getting no love nationally from the pollsters so far, even though they're 3-0 on the season. And Iowa State's a 3-point home favorite against number 17 Baylor. I'm going with the Bears to lose to the Clones on ESPN2 on Saturday. How about you?
Now here I thought I was going to pick up another game there because I was going home favorite, the Dogs. I think Baylor, obviously had a tough game against BYU and lost there at the end of the game. But I agree. I think what Matt Campbell's done, at Iowa State has been able to recruit better than any coach that they've ever had. I'm curious because you and I both know there's going to be a lot of rumors about Matt Campbell and if he's going to leave. And we're going to do the Florida Tennessee game, and I'm sure we'll make this pick. But I was curious, the drop off in Josh Heupel's last year at UCF, his record versus his first couple seasons. How much of that could have been distraction of, hey, he's going to leave, he's going to get a Power 5 job? Listen, there are distractions with coaches. And I'm curious as this season progresses, what's going to happen with Matt Campbell and those kinds of distractions.
It's a good point. He's had to deal with it every year, it seems, because of the success he's had there. I think it's going to be very difficult to pry him away from a place that he clearly loves. I think his family loves it there too. I do wonder about the future of the Big 12 as opposed to the strength of the future of the Big 10, even though Nebraska's had some tough times. There's going to be so much more money at his disposal, but that could be something that isn't solved for many months to come. So we're both going Iowa State there. Kansas is playing Duke. It's a noon kick on FS1. Both of these teams are 3-0. I never imagined that we'd be in a situation where we'd be picking this game in week 4 of the season. Rock Chalk Jayhawk wins this game against Mike Elko and the Duke Blue Devils. Congratulations to Lance Leopold on such a great start. Congratulations to Kansas on such a great start. And I'm sorry you're going to lose your coach at the end of the season because of this great start. Yeah.
Another rumors of Coach Leopold, he's going to be moving on to a different program. But yeah, home game for Kansas State. I think that's gonna be the edge. But I will say this: I would not be surprised if Duke was able to pull it out with Elko. I think week in, week out, no matter where he's been, guy's got a defense and he's got a defensive game plan that's going to keep them in a ball game. So I would not be surprised if it went against me.
He might be, out of all the defensive coordinators that have coached in the last 10 years, the one I respect the most. Just being in meetings with him, the way that he coaches his team, his understanding of other offenses, such a mastermind.
Yeah, it reminds me of, when I was with the Vikings and Tony Dungy was our defensive coordinator because before he got a head job, and just learning his history. Played quarterback in college, goes to the pros, plays defensive back, knows both sides of the ball. And it's like he was calling defensive plays kind of from his quarterback eyes, looking at it the other way. And I think that's why Coach Dungy was such a great coach, because he played both sides of the ball and he knew the strengths and weaknesses on both sides. Like, what is the offense's weakness? What is the defense's weakness? And he was able to devise a great game plan, with that knowledge.
Number 11, Tennessee versus number 20, Florida. 3:30 start on CBS. In the 90s, this might be the biggest game in the SEC of the season, as Fulmer and the Vols won a national championship and seemed to compete for them quite frequently, while Spurrier's Gators were doing the same. These two teams are in the top 20. Gino, I think there's a big difference, though, between these two teams. I think that Tennessee is a real legitimate top 10, top 15 team, and could compete with Alabama and Georgia at the top of the conference. They play both of those teams this year, and it wouldn't shock me if they beat one of them. The Gators have no business being ranked 20th. The Gators are ranked 20th because their name is Florida. They absolutely could, you could argue should, be 0-3 right now instead of 2-1. I can't believe Tennessee's only a 10.5 point favorite in this game. This is like the too good to be true, dangle it out there to you in Vegas type pick. And this is why I'm not betting on it, but I'm absolutely picking the Vols to win.
Vegas doesn't care if you win or lose. They just want 50% on one side, 50% on the other. They're just trying to figure out where the suckers are. So
yeah,
I agree with everything you say. And I think to get more in the nitty gritty with the Gators, they don't have a touchdown pass. There's 4 or 5 interceptions already thrown as a team. They don't have a touchdown thrown. I think that Josh Heupel, he's got, again, a veteran quarterback, 6-year guy, 24-year-old in Hendon Hooker, brings back memories of the days of wide receiver the Alvin Harpers of the world, the Tim McGee's of the world, where they were produced wideouts. Tennessee's got some wideouts.
UT wins. And UT will win in Lubbock, too. Texas, ranked 22nd, is at Texas Tech, a 3:30 start on ESPN. They're only 6.5 point favorites, but I'm going with the Horns with a backup quarterback to beat the Red Raiders.
Yeah, I think what Coach Sark has done has been instrumental, and he's just been outstanding. But I agree with you here. I think UT is going to go on the road and Torchy Tacos. Pregame.
Oh, love it. Best spot. I still have a gift card from there. Number 15, Oregon's an undefeated Washington State at the Palouse, 4:00 on Fox. Who you got?
I'm going to go with Oregon. I like Bo Nix as an experienced quarterback. I think he's gotten his feet, under him. He's settled in a new offense, had a great game last week. And I think they go on the road and win.
I agree with you there. Wazoo loses their first game. Number 10, Arkansas versus number 23, A&M. This game in Arlington, 7:00 kick on ESPN. Aggies are slight favorites. No, sir. Razorbacks win this one.
I would agree with you. And I think that the theme of the quarterback and the quarterback play is going to play out this entire season. And I think Arkansas has got better quarterback play. Now, Max Johnson, he's going to have probably his first start there with Jimbo, but I don't think Jimbo's going to put a lot of pressure on Max to make some big plays, but I agree with you. I think Arkansas wins this one.
USC is a college football playoff contender. They're going to win at Oregon State. They're only 6.5 point favorites against the undefeated Beavs, though.
I would agree there. I think USC's got a chance, though. They have to figure out, they have to be dominant against the line of scrimmage. That was the only thing in watching them against Stanford. Pound the rock, get that student body right, student body left game going.
Finally, real quickly, bonus pick, UNC, a 2-point favorite against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish in Chapel Thrill, 3:30 on ABC. I'm going Irish. Don't tell my friends. I'm going Irish.
Well, I can't pick Notre Dame. I'm a Miami guy. So I think you throw some of these picks in there just to, when you have a real strong feeling with Notre Dame or Florida State, you throw those games in there to try to pick one up on me cheaply.
I can't believe that Taylor went against me this week and he picked Notre Dame to beat my Tar Heels. Yeah, we'll see, Mac. This Saturday, UNC against Notre Dame, a 3:30 kick on ABC. Gino, these games are going to be terrific. I know the atmosphere in Knoxville is going to be electric.
Oh, I'm fired up. I mean, I think obviously we've been there right on the river. 3:30 game is going to be Checkered Stadium. I mean, this game might have cost one of their famous quarterbacks the Heisman Trophy. Really? I mean, think about it, because remember the buzz about the game and the series was Peyton gets over Florida.
Yeah,
they win the national championship. He's going to win the Heisman Trophy, and just never got over that hump. And I think that's what the fans are looking forward to seeing is just kind of the renewal
Can't wait to
of
watch it.
two great teams.
3:30 start on Touchdown Radio, heard here on Sirius XM. For Gino Torretta, I'm Taylor Zarzour. We appreciate you listening to Touchdown Radio Tailgate on ESPNU Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 84.